Welcome to We've Got a Country to Save, brought to you by my friends at investyrefy.com. Invest in America like I do, and by Freedom Chat. Freedom Chat has true end-to-end encryption, no storage of messages on the server, and no commercial use of user data. Speak freely and message privately. Download the app today and subscribe to my Freedom Chat channel at Larry Elder for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. We also thank Epic Times, Old Glory Bank, Patriot Mobile, and Birch Gold. Make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you're currently using, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. And be sure to patronize our sponsors. And if you don't patronize our sponsors, well... What are you doing, man? You crazy? You're all f***ing my games! Don't do this, please. Por favor, no me toques, Taylor. No me toques. We know where you live. DNC summary. Trump evil. We're good. Trump bad. We're good. Trump wants to undermine our democracy. We want to save it. Reproductive rights are on the ballot. What inflation? What high gas prices? What 10 million illegal aliens? And people are asking, is that a My Pillow? Breaking news, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. drops out and endorses Trump?
In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. In about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. 3 great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now to throw my support to President Trump. The causes were free speech, the war in Ukraine, and the war on our children.
What does it say about them that they have become so extreme that a guy like RFK, one of the standard bearers of what it is to be a Democrat, he can no longer associate with him and is endorsing a Republican?
It ought to scare them. I mean, I think that RFK is right. In certain swing states, it might make a difference where he's got 2 to 4%. But probably more important than that is telling Democrats, you can reconsider your allegiance to your party. You can even think about voting for somebody like Donald Trump. If RFK Jr. can do it, a scion of the Kennedy family can do it, then maybe, just maybe, it's not so bad for you to rethink the way your party put all these mandates down people's throats, the way your party is using government to censor people and their thoughts, the way your party is pushing for the Ukraine war with no end in sight, more and more money for that war. Maybe, just maybe, you might want to rethink your assumption. If Robert Kennedy can do it, you can do it. My mom was a lifelong Democrat, but in her latter years, she began voting for Republicans. And she would say, I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. That is essentially what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is saying.
We don't need no stinking policies.
I haven't heard from many voters looking for white papers and policy papers. What they want to hear is what her vision is for this country.
The American people don't vote on policy prescriptions.
I actually think the way the American people think about this choice is less about the minutia of policy and more about the direction of the country, number one. And secondly, about the person. Character, it does matter.
And Jerry Connolly, the congressman from Virginia there, I asked him more about this. He said, remember what Elizabeth Warren did when she ran back in 2020? She had a white paper for every policy position under the sun. And what happened? She collapsed in the primary. So there's a belief that perhaps you put more ideas on paper, that's a bad idea. But the question is, voters want to see some of those ideas.
Right.
Maybe, but
We'll
if
see,
you go with the vibes, it's a vibes election.
Right, that's right.
Hi, folks. Do you trust this economy? What if you could receive a strong fixed rate of return that's not correlated to the stock market or the Fed? And what if you were in control? You could turn your income on or off, compound it, whatever you choose. What if your interest was compounded daily, you were paid monthly, and there were absolutely no fees? And what if you could have peace of mind because there was no attack on your principal if you ever needed your money back? Well, folks, there is an investment with all of these features. Investors all over the country are earning a high fixed rate of return with Yrefy, and they don't care about what happens with the stock market or the Fed. And best of all, they receive their statement every month with no surprises. Would you like some more information? Just call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Or log on to investyrefy.com. That's investyrefy.com. Yrefy, do well by doing good. Speaking of policies, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Harris campaign supports the Biden plan to raise taxes to the tune of $5 trillion on unrealized tax gains by the so-called wealthy. And watching the DNC convention, one might be tempted to forget that 2/3 of Americans consider the country on the wrong track, that inflation hit a 40-year high, which translates into grocery prices 20% higher than they were 3.5 years ago, that gas prices are up 50% since Biden-Harris entered office, that last year, according to a recent survey, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, up 6% from 2022. That 80% of Americans consider eating at a fast food restaurant like McDonald's, I kid you not, is a luxury. That the average family of four spends roughly $1,200 a month more for the same goods and services it bought 3.5 years ago. That in the last 3.5 years, 10 million illegal aliens have been intentionally allowed to come into the country. And that after the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, our enemies are on the move and our friends can't trust us. But hey, Donald Trump.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
What part of peacefully and patriotically don't these people understand?
We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity.
Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames.
Other lies include Trump wants a nationwide abortion ban. Trump would ban in vitro fertilization. Trump created Project 2025. Trump wants to ban books. And the record inflation is due to greed. I'm old enough to remember when just a few days ago, VP Harris promised to impose price controls.
On day one, I will take on price gouging and bring down costs. We will ban more of those those hidden fees and surprise late charges that banks and other companies use to pad their profits. We will take on corporate landlords and cap unfair rent increases. And we will take on Big Pharma to cap prescription drug costs for all Americans. Our plan will lower costs and save many middle-class families thousands of dollars a year. But Donald Trump has a different plan in mind.
You heard that right. On day one, I will take on price gauging, she meant gouging, and bring down costs. We will ban more of those hidden fees and surprise late charges that banks and other companies use to pad their profits. We will take on corporate landlords and cap unfair rent increases. This is known as price control. It's hard to overstate how idiotic this is.
Of course, roughly translated, what she's talking about is price controls and giving the federal government the power to interfere in the free market for food. Now, this is, of course, a brilliant idea, which has had such amazing success everywhere. It has been tried from Venezuela to the Soviet Union to Mao's China. Well, no, of course, this is a terrible idea. It is, in fact, as the New York Post so perfectly put it, communism.
Some years ago, when I taught at Brandeis, I traveled from California to Massachusetts and discovered that my auto insurance rates had doubled. And since Los Angeles is not a small village or something, you wonder, why does that happen? Now, at about the same time, many other people were upset because Massachusetts had the highest auto insurance premiums in the country. The political answer was not to say, why are these premiums so high? What fact are they conveying? But it was to control the premiums. In fact, they launched an investigation of the insurance industry, the net result of which was they discovered that insurance companies were losing money in Massachusetts, charging the highest auto insurance premiums in the country. Now, anyone who's ever seen Massachusetts drivers will know that there's no mystery as to why those premiums are so high. The only place where you can regularly see drivers changing lanes in the tunnel during the rush hour is in the Callahan Tunnel in Boston. When I taught at Brandeis, I can recall driving to work on the right-hand side of the street and being surprised to see a tractor-trailer pass me on the right on the shoulder of the road. The only place where I've seen emergency vehicles with their sirens on, having to jam on the brakes because someone did a left turn in front of them, is in Massachusetts. But of course, people didn't want to hear what the prices were telling them, and so the answer was to control the prices themselves. There have been many other areas in which there have been price controls. They have a standard, really stereotypical pattern. One is that you reduce the supply of whatever is being controlled. Not surprising, since people do less when they're paid less. The other is that you reduce the quality of what's being controlled, because higher quality is costlier than lower quality. And when you force the prices down, people then reduce the quality of what they're producing. One of the classic examples is housing. Wherever rent control has been put in, there is a shortage of apartments. In many places, there's a provision in the law that says this is only a temporary measure until the housing shortage is over. And sometimes they define that in terms of some percentage of vacancy and so on. And what they don't understand is that as long as that law is on the books, there will always be a shortage, and there will never be a time to take the law off the books. In Paris, they put a law like this on the books as an emergency measure during World War I. It was still in force when World War II broke out. In Sweden, they put one in the early days of World War II. Decades later, it was still there. Finally, for some reason, it occurred to someone to take off the price controls. Instantly, there was a housing surplus. The housing projects put up by the Swedish government suddenly began to have high vacancy rates, and in fact had to be bailed out because they couldn't fill them. I thought about rent control a few years ago when I visited West Berlin. It was still a difference in those days. And I could see this marvelous new modern city. And I came back and visited some of my relatives in the Bronx. And as I drove into the Bronx and I saw all these hulks of abandoned and boarded up buildings, I thought, suppose someone from Mars had come down here and you said to him, which of these two cities was bombed during World War II? He would pick the Bronx, because Berlin had recovered from the bombing, but the Bronx had not recovered from rent control.
My question was economists have been speculating the issue of reestablishing price and wage controls. I guess you just commented on that. Would you like to elaborate on that a little further?
I am afraid that the chances that we shall have price and wage controls are unfortunately not negligible. It is a device that governments have repeatedly resorted to try to cover up the effects of their own policies. It is offered as a cure for inflation. It is not a cure for inflation. It has never been a cure for inflation. It is an alleged cure that is far worse than the disease, because its effect is to repress the symptoms, to repress the consequences of the more basic force. I always say that if you want to analyze wage and price control, the simplest analogy that brings it home is to think of a kettle on your stove in which there's water, and the water is boiling. It's got a cover on it, and the boiling water is threatening to throw the cover off. Now, obvious, sensible thing to do is to turn down the heat under the kettle. Another thing you can do is to take a brick and put it on top of the kettle, and at the same time turn up the heat. That is precisely what President Nixon did in 1971, when he simultaneously put a brick on top of the kettle by freezing prices and wages, and at the same time launched on a more expansive monetary and fiscal policy, which turned up the heat under the kettle. And what happened? The lid of the kettle blew up. You held it down for a little while, and then you had a 12%, 13% inflation. That has been the experience every time, not simply over the last 20, 30 years, but for 2,000 years. Emperor Diocletian tried the same thing in Rome 2,000 years ago with identically the same results. So I have nothing but a negative opinion about wage and price control.
And what does all this lead to?
I didn't tell this one to Gorbachev. You know, there's a 10-year delay in the Soviet Union of delivery of an automobile. And only 1 out of 7 families in the Soviet Union own automobiles. There's a 10-year wait. And you go through quite a process when you're ready to buy, and then you put up the money in advance. And this happened to a fellow, and this is their story that they tell, this joke, that this man, he laid down his money, and then the fellow that was in charge said to him, okay, come back in 10 years and get your car. And he said, morning or afternoon? And the fellow behind the counter said, well, 10 years from now, what difference does it make? And he said, well, the plumber's coming in the morning.
Did you know there is nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent? That's right. There is a massive amount of money that the lame duck administration is pushing hard to spend in their last few months. If the president is able to push these funds out, we could see another prolonged inflation surge just like during COVID. And I'm sure you remember the terrible effects that high prices had on most Americans. But there's hope. A surge in prices can be beaten. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group is the ultimate inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by visiting LarryForGold.com. Birch Gold makes it seamless to roll over your retirement account while preserving your tax advantage status. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to tank the dollar further. Protect your financial future right now. Visit LarryForGold.com for your free info kit from Birch Gold. On Borders, are you kidding me?
And let me be clear. And let me be clear, after decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security, and here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law. I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
Oh, that's just 10 to 12 million illegal aliens too late. Besides, the bill would allow 4,999 illegals to come in every single day, provided they were from either Canada or Mexico. Other countries, it didn't even go to that 4,999 daily limit. And it gave a lot of new powers to Biden and to Mayorkas. That's 1.8 million illegal aliens a year, minimum. Now the DNC was in Chicago, Obama's adopted hometown. Check out what some Chicago Southsiders had to say about Obama and Trump.
I'll vote for Trump. I'll go for Donald Trump. Me too. I'll go for Trump.
Who are you voting for in 2024?
Trump. Trump too.
And why is that, ma'am?
He the best president ever.
Has Barack Obama done anything for around here and these?
He never did anything since he been in office.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he out. Trump the best.
Barack Obama? Man, I ain't got no message to him. I don't mess with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm a Trump supporter. Trump do more for black people and care more about black people. And Barack Obama ain't black. Just to let that be known.
All right. What about Kamala Harris?
I don't either. Yeah. All Trump. Trump all day.
Yeah. What's your message to Donald Trump today?
Keep going. Keep going. Come get us, man. We waiting on you.
I'm a Trump supporter, man. We gonna keep this going. Trump, he a real businessman. I'm a real Republican, man. I want Trump back in office second term.
What would be your message to Barack Obama?
I don't know, pump some money in here. Pump some money like Trump, you know?
Your message to Donald Trump?
Come on, man, get us to the Super Bowl, bro. Make America great, man. That's all I can say. Make America great.
Everyone's so friendly around here.
Yeah,
everyone's so friendly around here.
I'm going to be interviewing people.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be somewhere chilling.
I need chain game like this. Here we go. Here we go.
What's up, my
Who
guy?
we need up in there? Who we finna let drop a bag in the hood? Who we want to get the bag back going in the hood?
Y'all know we gonna need Trump in that joint. Y'all know
ain't
we gonna need
find a
Trump
soul
in
around
that
here. They
joint.
gonna take Trump.
Y'all gotta dig what's going on, man.
Yeah, I'm taking over Benny Show, man. It's Odie, man. I'm a YouTuber, man. Y'all get at me, man. But everything Trump over on this side of town.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie to you. You can go everywhere. You see how dry this motherfucker is? We need Trump, boy. Whatever it's gonna do to make this flow back, man, get it up. Let's get it going immediately, man. Benny, who you going for, Benny?
My president is making America great again, Donald Trump.
I'm going with Trump too. We locked in. That's what I'm talking about, man.
Amazing.
I need the job with you, man.
I love Chicago.
It's my long lost twin, man. Separated at birth, man.
Better tattoos, better style, better hair.
We both good looking though, man. That's all that count, man.
Better
Balls.
teeth and a better ride. All right.
Kamala Harris's speech was full of platitudes.
And with this election, our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward.
And about this New way forward. DNC delegates were asked to name their favorite Kamala Harris policy.
Will you be up for a quick interview?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
What's your favorite policy of Kamala's?
That's a hard one.
What's your favorite policy of Kamala's?
Her being president.
That's your favorite policy position?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Because it covers everything that she defends.
I'm really excited for her to restore reproductive rights across America.
How do you think she'll go about doing that?
I don't know.
What a fun question.
I don't know. I'm picking and choosing. I mean, I really like most of them.
So you have to look at it broadly, right? It's about what she stands for right now.
What's your favorite of Kamala's policies?
I'm trying to think. Well, actually, more of like, well, you know, what Waltz comes in.
All of her policies, everything from I'm non-binary, and so all of the policies for basic human rights to have our own bodies and do with them as we please, you know.
Her willingness to move forward on affordable health care.
How do you think she'll do that as president?
I think she'll work to motivate the legislature to vote in favor of it.
As like her as a person, just like tops out any policy.
And then there's the evil Project 2025 that Trump had nothing to do with, to which Kamala Harris referred.
And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
He has, with his friends, said the quiet parts out loud, but not only said them out loud, he wrote a book about it. What's it called? Project 2025.
Even CNN admitted that Donald Trump did not write Project 2025.
Trump did not write Project 2025. The project's big policy document published by the Heritage Foundation think tank lists dozens of people as authors, editors, contributors. Donald Trump is not among them.
Let me ask you a question. How many of you are concerned about the invasion of privacy that is currently going on by the Biden administration? Biden's DOJ is invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on their political affiliation, and that's why I partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that, like me, believes privacy is your fundamental human right. Freedom Chat has variable end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection, no storage of messages on their servers, and no commercial use of user data. I'm such a fan of Freedom Chat, in fact, that I have created my own private channel that you can subscribe to for exclusive content, including never-seen images, videos, and posts. Simply download the app, or if you're on Android, join their waitlist. Search for my channel and subscribe. No one can see the channels that you are subscribed to or the posts that you react to. It's your own perfectly curated private news feed. Speak freely and message privately with Freedom Chat. Download the app today and subscribe to my channel at Larry Elder for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. Poor Biden. He made a brief appearance on day one of the 4-day convention, and poof, it was Joe Who. Now, Biden did say Trump and his friends can't read.
Donald Trump and the Republican friends, they not only can't think, they can't read very well. Seriously, think about it. Look at their Project 2025.
Does the anti-school choice party really want to go there in Chicago? Okay, let's examine who can and can't read. In 2022, according to the Illinois State Board of Education, there were 53 Illinois public schools, K through 12, mostly in Chicago, you know, the site of the DNC convention, where 0% of the students can do math at grade level. 0. And there were 30 public schools, again, mostly in Chicago, where 0% of the students in Illinois can read at grade level. 0!
Not one single student could do math at grade level in 53 different Illinois schools. And for reading, not one single student could read at grade level in 30 different schools. Those results are dismal. Illinois' educational system is failing our kids, and it's why we finally need school choice in Illinois. Go to wirepoints.org to learn more.
According to Wirepoints, An Illinois research nonprofit, there are 622 schools where only 1 out of 10 kids or less can read at grade level. That is 18% of the state's 3,547 schools that tested students in 2022. And only 1 out of 10 kids can do math at grade level in 930 schools. Yet Democrats like Obama, Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden, and Elizabeth Warren, who send their own kids to private schools, oppose school choice.
You want to freeze federal funding for all new charter schools?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think that charter schools often are able to do things that public schools can't. They can pick and choose the students that they get. Their teachers are not able to become union members. They don't have the accountability that public schools do. And we've seen many, many problems in charter schools. And they are taking money away from public education. So I think public money should go to public schools, and we're to freeze all private charter schools.
Nationwide, around 10% of American families have their own kids in private school. In Chicago, however, again, the site of the DNC convention, 28% of Chicago public school teachers with school-age kids put their own kids in private schools. The people who know the school system the best don't put their own kids in it. What does that tell you? That's like opening up a restaurant, putting up a big sign saying, "Come on in, eat the food." We sure won't. Now, Michelle Obama said her mother was suspicious of folks who took more than they need.
My mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
Really? You shouldn't take more than you need? Or, as President Obama once said,
I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
Really?
New England now, the Obamas will be calling Massachusetts home for at least part of the year. TMZ reporting they've purchased the Martha's Vineyard estate of Celtics owner Wyc Grousbeck. Former First Family paying a little less than $12 million for this waterfront mansion in Edgartown. It sits on about 30 acres of land. Real estate listing says the nearly 7,000 square foot home has 7 bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms. Obamas have, of course, been frequent visitors to the island, vacationing there nearly every summer during their 8 years in the White House.
Really?
Aloha from Hawaii, birthplace of Bette Midler, land of pineapples, and oh yeah, place where the Obamas are building their huge honkin' house. Also, Jim Nabors died there in 2017. Miss you, Gomer.
The Obamas' Oahu property, the mansion in Hawaii, is almost nearing completion. This thing looks beautiful. They bought it back in 2015 for $8.7 million. It sits on 3 acres of land.
Yes, and someone get the salad dressing, cuz.
It's very ranchy.
Yeah, but it looks kind of mid-century almost.
It's also totally isolated.
Which means Barack and Michelle won't have to deal with annoying howlies, brah. And this house has history.
It was the house that was used in Magnum P.I. He bought Magnum P.I.'s house.
And then destroyed Magnum P.I.'s house and built this totally new one.
Really?
I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
Hey, it beats camping out. Now, about abortion, or as Democrats like to call it, reproductive rights.
One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women.
What is reproductive about abortion? And they were giving out free abortions and free vasectomies at the DNC.
They are handing out free abortions and vasectomies. A Planned Parenthood branch out of St. Louis posting this. Here we come, Chicago. Our mobile health clinic will be in the West Loop August 19th to 20th, providing free vasectomies and medication abortion. Emergency contraception will also be available for free without an appointment. Now, it's not only that, there is, and we'll put this picture up, an 18-foot IUD, 18 foot. I'll be on the lookout for it. I guess it will be kind of hard to miss, but they're calling this Frida Womb. That is the name of this 18-foot IUD here at the DNC.
Now, who are the real abortion extremists? Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed a bill that permits abortion up to the moment of birth.
Minnesota is now officially the first state in the nation in the post-Roe era to ensure residents have a legal right to abortion. Today, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed a bill that's meant to ensure that the state's existing protections remain in place no matter who sits on future courts. Democratic leaders took advantage of their new narrow control of both houses of the legislature to rush the bill through in the first month of the 2023 legislative session. The bill passed in the House by 4 votes and in the Senate by 1 vote. Opponents say the bill is extreme and allows abortions up until birth. They say that it and other fast-track legislation expected to get votes in the coming weeks will leave Minnesota with essentially no restrictions on abortion.
No restrictions whatsoever?
Let's move on to another important issue to voters, and
Please.
that is the issue of abortion. You wrote the foreword for a new book by Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts of Project 2025. Project 2025, among many other things, calls for rolling back approval of the abortion drug mifepristone. Donald Trump told me during the debate that he would not block the drug. And on Thursday, when he was asked, he didn't rule it out. So which is it?
Well, look, Dana, first of all, Project 2025 is not affiliated with the Trump campaign. Kevin Roberts is a friend of mine, but I wouldn't say that he speaks for the president in the same way I wouldn't say that he speaks for me. Now, what Donald Trump has said is that he respects the Supreme Court's opinion on the mifepristone ruling.
But let me just stop you right there. The
Please.
Supreme Court, you're a lawyer, so you know this better than I.
Sure.
The Supreme Court, all they did was say that what came to them didn't have standing. So they let it stand. A real question, a substantive question, hasn't made it to the Supreme Court. So my question for you is whether or not a Trump-Vance administration would allow mifepristone to continue to be sent around the country.
Well, President Trump won the nomination of the Republican Party. He said it to you, and he said it repeatedly, that his goal is not to block mifepristone, it's to let states make the decision on abortion policy. Now, of course, that does mean, Dana, we have to be honest about this, that California might have less restrictive rules than Ohio, which might have less restrictive rules than Alabama. I think what President Trump is really trying to do on the abortion question is really admirable, and I wish the press was a little bit more honest about it. He's saying we've had a 50-year culture war over abortion, where unfortunately this issue has just divided the country, and he wants to provide some ground for us to come together, for states to make these decisions, for voters to make these decisions, and for us all to respect one another. That's all he's
on
proposed.
that issue, a few months ago, on the question, his position, which you've adopted, is it is up to the states. I spoke to a woman named Kate Cox. She lives in Texas.
Sure.
She was 20 weeks pregnant. Her fetus was diagnosed with a disease called, it was a deadly genetic condition called trisomy 18. She said that carrying the pregnancy, she was told this by her doctors, to term, if the fetus even survived, would hurt her chances for having more children, which she and her husband desperately wanted. Why is not allowing her to end that pregnancy helpful or supportive of expanding families like you want it to be?
Well, first of all, Dana, my heart breaks for this woman. I don't know her personally. I've certainly heard the story, and our heart breaks for her. And we want people to have healthy, happy families. And it's extremely unfortunate that sometimes, medicine, the act of God, whatever happens, it just doesn't work out. And what the president has said, I think, very clearly is that he is not trying to prevent women who have non-viable pregnancies from getting access to the medical care that they need.
But allowing the states to decide, a place like Texas, which has very strict laws now, doesn't allow a Kate Cox to end a pregnancy that is fatal and could potentially hurt her ability to have more kids.
But what President Trump has said is that we are going to let voters make these decisions. And again, Texas might have a view that President Trump disagrees with. They might have a view that President Trump agrees with, but you've got to let the voters make these decisions.
So you're comfortable with that law in Texas?
I'm not comfortable with anything, Dana, because I'm not passing judgment on what these laws should be. You ask me my own personal view. I campaigned against an Ohio referendum, but I think that we have to let voters decide. And when they speak their mind, you have to be respectful. Agree or disagree with whatever voters decide, they're going to make these decisions.
Now, about this case they discussed, in America, the Jesuit, it wrote, there are no black and white answers in the Texas trisomy 18 abortion case. But a tragic diagnosis for a child in utero is not a legally sufficient reason to get an abortion in the state of Texas. Those exceptions are only granted to save the life of the mother as determined by a reasonable medical judgment. Nor is a likely fatal diagnosis for an unborn child a sufficient moral reason for obtaining an abortion in traditional Catholic moral theology. The Church refuses to agree that killing the helpless, involuntary, and even perhaps maimed human being is ever a human way out, and believes in the indestructible value of the human person regardless of its mental or physical condition, regardless of the circumstances. Now, the mother here has decided to leave Texas to have an abortion. Americans have had enough of supporting companies that hate our values. Tired of compromise? So am I. It's time to switch to Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They are an example of putting the cause ahead of profits, and that's why I'm proud to partner with them. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, giving you access to all 3 major networks, which means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to without funding the left. When you switch over to Patriot Mobile, you're sending a message that you support the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, and our military vets and our first responder heroes. Their 100% US-based customer service team makes it easy to switch, keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. That's patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. Get free activation when you use the offer code Larry. Join me and make that switch today. patriotmobile.com/Larry, patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. Now let's talk about extreme. Bernie Sanders talks about his stand on abortion. Listen to this.
Senator, can you name a single circumstance at any point in a pregnancy in which you would be okay with abortion being illegal?
It's not a question of me being okay. Thank you for the question, Brett. I happen to believe, and let me be very clear about it, I know not everybody here will agree with me. I happen to believe that it is wrong for the government to be telling a woman what to do with her own body. I believe, and I understand there are honest people. I mean, I have a lot of friends, some support it, some disagree with me. They hold a different point of view, and I respect that. But that is my view. And I'll tell you something which I don't like in this debate. There are a whole lot of people out there who tell me the government is terrible, government is awful, get government off our backs. My Republican friends want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education. But somehow on this issue, they want to tell every woman in America what she should do with her body. I think that's wrong.
I guess the genesis of the question is that, you know, there are some Democrats who say after 5 months, with the exception of the life of the mother or the health of the baby, that perhaps that's something to look at. You're saying no.
I am very strongly pro-choice. That is a decision to be made by the woman, her physician, and her family. That's my view.
This is the exact same position taken by Kamala Harris.
The vast majority of Americans agree that the government should not be making this decision for the women of America.
What is it that you believe? I mean, what week of pregnancy should abortion access be cut off?
We need to restore the protections of Roe versus Wade.
We're
not trying to do something new.
Well, that was nebulous because it was about viability, which could be anywhere between 20 to 24 weeks. And
so no. Let me be very clear.
The Women's Health Protection Act that the White House also endorsed.
Let me be very clear. From day one, the president has been clear, I have been clear. We need to put back the protections that are in Roe v. Wade into law. Since the Supreme Court took it, Congress has the power and ability to pass legislation to put those protections back in law, and Joe Biden will sign that bill. So that is what we want.
But does it need to be specific in terms of defining and where that guarantee goes up to and where it does not, at which week of pregnancy?
We need to put back in place the protections of Roe versus Wade.
You know why I'm asking you this question, though, because
we're not trying to do anything that did not exist before June of last year. We are saying
it wasn't crafted into law, and that's why I'm asking you for the specifics there, because Republicans say the lack of a precise date in cutting it off. You know this. They say that allows Democrats to perform abortions up until, birth.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is statistically not accurate.
And it's ridiculous, and it's a mischaracterization of the point. No, the point is...
But do you need to be more precise?
I am being precise. We need to put into law the protections of Roe versus Wade, and that is about going back to where we were before the Dobbs decision.
But if there is the possibility through legislation to provide any kind of guarantee at the federal level, any kind of protection, like the Republican proposal of 15 weeks protection.
The Republicans
is
are
it
also
worth doing something?
Members of the Republican Party are also proposing a national ban. The thing that
I'm talking about, the Lindsey Graham bill, as you know, and those proposals of giving some access, though that's 15 weeks. Why do you think it shouldn't be specific? Out in New Mexico, for example, the governor there says it shouldn't be nailed down to a week because it should be a private matter between a woman and her doctor. There shouldn't be a precise number put on that. Is that what you believe as well?
I believe that we should put the protections of Roe v. Wade into law, and the way that will happen is if we have a United States Congress who, regardless of their personal view for themselves or their family, would agree that the women of America should be trusted to make decisions about their life and their body based on what they know to be in their best interest. It's that simple.
Is it that simple? There should be no law preventing an abortion beyond a certain time during a pregnancy, up to birth, past birth?
This Philadelphia abortion doctor convicted of killing 3 babies is being spared a potential death sentence after making a deal with prosecutors. Dr. Kermit Gosnell waived his right to appeal in exchange for a life sentence without parole. The 72-year-old doctor was convicted Monday of first-degree murder in a case that became a flashpoint in the nation's abortion debate. A jury found Gosnell guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of the babies who were delivered alive and then killed with scissors. He was also convicted in a patient's overdose death and for performing illegal third-term abortions.
The logical extension of this position is that this abortion doctor, now behind bars for performing late-term abortions with the permission of the mother, should be set free. Please, media, ask Kamala Harris and Tim Walz whether Dr. Kermit Gosnell is a political prisoner, a persecuted doctor who should be set free because, after all, he's committed no crime. No reporter has ever asked that question as far as I know, which is a logical extension, as I said, of the Democrats' position on abortion.
Senator Stabenow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor Myers, you are here at the invitation of my Democratic colleagues, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. In his opening statement, my good friend Senator Whitehouse said, I want to quote, "Reproductive justice is economic justice," close quote. Do you agree with that?
I might, as an economist, use the word rights, but yeah, I do agree with that.
Okay. That's not true for the baby, is it?
Well, first of all, I would refer to a fetus, not
yeah,
a baby.
but that's, well, a fetus. I refer to it as a baby. That's not true as for the baby, is it?
The evidence that I presented to you, Senator Kennedy, was evidence about measurable effects on the lives of women, families,
Right, I
and
got
children
that
who were
part, but that's
born.
not true for the baby, is it?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand
Well, it's
the
not
question.
true. Let me be clear.
Let me
I'm
back
sorry.
up. As an economist, I measure effects using data. I'm not here to talk about ethics, assignment of
Right.
personhood. That's not my
Well, but you said
role.
you agreed with the chairman's statement that reproductive justice is economic justice. There is no economic justice for the baby because the baby's dead, right?
I wouldn't refer. I don't really know how to answer your question. I would.
You know,
I would refer to
was
a
the baby
fetus.
dead or alive?
We're referring to a fetus.
Okay, is the fetus dead or alive after an abortion?
The fetus would be dead after an
Okay,
abortion.
all right. If the mother is healthy and the baby is healthy, do you support abortion up to the moment of birth?
So I think that's a really hard question to answer because that just doesn't happen. You're asking me about something that simply doesn't happen.
Well,
I
it's
think-
legal.
I will tell you
it's
that-
legal. It's legal in Vermont, New Jersey, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Alaska, and the District of Columbia, and the Loon wing of the Democratic Party supports abortion up to the moment of birth. So, do you support that or oppose it?
I don't think. Let me say, I'm here to talk about the economics of abortion.
No, you're here as an expert.
And
I'm just asking you
I
what
think you're
you
asking me a
believe.
question as a person, which I'll answer as a person.
Okay, tell me as a person.
I will tell you as a person that I have ambivalence about abortion. I will tell you as a person, I haven't personally had an abortion. And I will also tell you as a person looking at the evidence around me and understanding how complex the decisions are that people face.
Okay.
I'm just simply uncomfortable
I got to move on,
thinking that there's a
Professor, 'cause I don't
simple
think I don't think
answer
you're
that
going to
applies
answer
to
my
everyone.
question.
I trust women and their healthcare providers.
It's real simple. You either support abortion for a healthy mother and baby up to the moment of birth or you don't. And I don't think it's a difficult question. How about you, doctor? Do you support, if the mother is healthy and the baby's healthy, do you support abortion up to the moment of birth?
So, Senator, you're using really inflammatory language to talk about a medical procedure, and it's not a simple yes or no. Not to mention, when you make statements like that, you're erasing the grief and the trauma that my patients
You're not
are
going to
going
answer my
through.
question either, are you?
It's not a question that
I
can
think
be answered
I think
in
I
an
know your
appropriate
answer.
way,
I think
Senator.
I know your answer. Mrs. Ford, okay? Let's take a baby at 21 weeks. Hold up, Mike. This is a baby at 21 weeks, okay? The baby can feel pain, right?
Yes.
And the baby's pretty developed, right?
Yes.
And do you know the name of the procedure that the doctor would use to abort that baby at 21 weeks?
I'm not a doctor, but I believe it's a DNR.
It's called dilation and evacuation. Is that right?
As far as I understand, yes.
Yeah. And first, the doctor would dilate the cervix, and then the doctor would take what's called the doctor would call it a Sofer clamp. It's really a pair of pliers with sharp teeth on the end. And without giving the baby any pain medication, the doctor would go through the vagina, through the uterus, and start tearing the baby apart. Is that right?
As far as I understand the procedure.
Yeah, and she might start with the legs and pull them out, and the arms and pull them out, right? And then she might go for the heart or the spine and just pull the baby out piece by piece. Is that right? Without giving the baby pain medication.
That's what I understand the procedure to be.
Okay, but then you got to get the head out. The baby's dead, but maybe not. Maybe it's still in pain, but then you got to get the head out. And even with the cervix dilated, you got to get the head out, which is hard. So then the doctor would go in and use those pliers to crush the baby's head. Is that right?
As far as I understand.
And then she'd pull the head out, the crushed skull out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Senator Kennedy, your time has expired here.
Well, you
and
gave
Senator
the
Stabenow is
others
waiting.
plenty of time, Mr. Chairman.
Just letting you know, your time's expired. Your
Okay.
other senator's waiting.
Well, I was waiting when you were letting others. I'm sorry you don't want to hear about what happens.
No, I don't think anybody
in
else
an
is
actual
going- I don't think
abortion,
anybody
but
else
I
is going
thought that
over.
was what we were here to talk about.
No one else has gone over. Some of the witnesses went a little bit long, but on both sides. So
I thought we were here
trying to
about
control them.
protecting mothers and killing babies.
I'm going to turn to Senator Stabenow and Ms.
I'm sorry
Phillips.
you don't
I'm
want
sorry
to hear
that
it.
this had to
Like
take
we've
place
got
in
a
front of
whole
you.
roster here.
My apologies.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
You can be in heaven or you can be in hell. The choice is yours. I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours.
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
And CNN's Dana Bash asked JD Vance about his childless cat lady's comment.
Doing a project talking to voters all over swing states. He talked to Republican voters in the critical swing state, must win, I would say, swing state of Pennsylvania.
Of course.
One of them, Carol Carty, said she was almost a childless dog lady because she didn't happen to meet the right person until she was 40 years old. Another, Joan London, was offended that you don't think she has a stake in the future of the country because she doesn't have children. What do you say to key voters like that, Republicans, swing voters?
Sure.
Who are put off by your views?
Well, what I would say, Dana, is if you look at what I said in context, the Harris campaign has frankly lied about what I actually said. I'm pro-family. I want us to have more families, and obviously sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes for medical reasons, sometimes because you don't meet the right person. But the point is that our country has become anti-family in its public policy. Let me just give you an example of this. So after our second child was born, my wife and I, we have 3 little kids. After our second child was born, we get the baby home from the hospital, we get this ridiculous out-of-network medical bill that is financially shocking, and we're pretty well off. And that happened because we have ridiculous laws in this country that are anti-family. I've sponsored legislation to try to fix things like that so moms and dads don't get these surprise medical bills. I think it's important for us to be pro-family. That's all that I've ever said.
If you want to be
Please.
pro-family, I want to, because you do criticize, as you just did, the Democratic Party for being anti-family.
I do.
You called out Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg in particular. Kamala Harris has 2 stepchildren. Pete Buttigieg and his husband have adopted twins. Do you recognize them as parents and more broadly as being part of families?
Well, of course I do, Dana. I mean, you know my life story. I was
I wouldn't
actually
say of
raised.
course.
I
You
was
called them out
raised,
by
but Dana,
people.
I was raised. I
By-
mean, one
by name.
of the first people that I gave a hug to after my RNC convention speech was my stepmom, who's been an incredibly important person in my
So
life.
she's not childless,
My
then?
kids call her Mamaw. Of course, she's not childless. But
But you
again,
called her that.
the criticism. I certainly did not call my own stepmother
No,
childless.
Kamala Harris.
I criticized Kamala Harris for being part of a set of ideas that exists in American leadership that is anti-family. I never, Dana, criticize people for not having kids. I criticize people for being anti-child. And I do think that Kamala
you
Harris
think she's
has made some
anti-child?
bizarre statements. She has said things like, it's reasonable not to have children over climate change. I think it's the exact opposite message we should be sending to our young families. I want to expand the child tax credit. I want to stop those surprise medical bills. I want to make housing more affordable so that if you have a young family, you can actually afford to put them in a home. And I think that it is unfortunate that so much of our public leadership has become anti-family. Look, what I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake?
When a house is on fire, we don't ask about the homeowner's race or religion. We don't wonder who their partner is or how they voted. No, we just try to do the best we can to save them. And if the place happens to belong to a childless cat lady, well, we try to get that cat out too.
Democrats and the media are obsessed with that sarcastic comment Vance made because it advances their standard Democrat narrative that Republicans are sexist and anti-women.
I know the media wants to attack me and wants me to back down on this, Megan, but the simple point that I made is that having children, becoming a father, becoming a mother, I really do think it changes your perspective in a pretty profound way. This is something, of course, we've recognized for hundreds of years in this country, that human civilization has always recognized. But there's a deeper point here, Megan. It's not a criticism of people who don't have children. I explicitly said in my remarks, despite the fact the media has lied about this, that this is not about criticizing people who, for various reasons, didn't have kids. This is about criticizing the Democratic Party for becoming anti-family and anti-child. We have to ask ourselves, Megan, why do we have masking of toddlers years after the pandemic ended? Why do we have the Harris campaign coming out this very morning, Megan, and saying that we should not have the child tax credit, which lowers tax rates for parents of young children? It's because they have become anti-family and anti-kid. And I'm proud to stand up for parents, and I hope that parents out there recognize that I'm a guy who wants to fight for you. I want to fight for your interests. I want to fight for your stake in the country, and that is what this is fundamentally about. The Democrats in the past 5-10 years, Megan, they have become anti-family. It's built into their policy. It's built into the way they talk about parents and children, and it's time that we called that out. I don't think we should back down from it, Megan. I think we should be honest about the problem.
Now, the point Vance was making is quite simple and not particularly controversial. It is that, in his opinion, people with children have more skin in the game. I have no children, but my mom took the same Vance position. My dad took the same Vance position. My pastor takes the same Vance position. It doesn't offend me that they feel that way. Besides, I ran for governor and then for president because I wanted to give back to a country that's been so great to me, even though I don't have kids. I felt I still had something to offer. Now, speaking of Kamala Harris's extremism, a new Media Research Center poll finds that the majority of registered Democrats and independents who probably will vote for Biden have no blooming idea about Harris's left-wing record. Ask about some of the extreme positions taken by Harris, 71% of the Democrats and 86% of the independents said they either didn't know about them or they weren't sure about them. How extreme? Her positions include a Real Clear Markets article said Bank of America needs to come clean about debanking practices. It wrote, and I'm quoting, "More victims of Bank of America's debanking regime have come forward, including Timothy II Project International and constitutional scholar John Eastman, a friend of mine, both debanked under similar circumstances by the nation's second largest bank. The bank's lack of transparency about cancellations that suspiciously look like they are based on viewpoint is why shareholders sought a report assessing whether the bank's policies and practices pose a risk of politicized debanking. Old Glory Bank will never debank any law-abiding customer. Our mission is the Constitution. Open an account at oldglorybank.com, and when you get your debit card in the mail, activate it, and you'll get a copy of my latest book, As Goes California, at a 50% discount. oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. Back to the DNC, and then there was Bill Clinton.
Now let's cut to the chase. I am too old to gild the lily. 2 days ago, I turned 78, the oldest man in my family of 4 generations. And the only personal vanity I want to assert is I'm still younger than Donald Trump.
I'm too old to gild the lily. Who is Lily? Let's hope she's not an intern. Is this the same Bill Clinton who was accused of sexual assault by Paula Jones, accused of rape by Juanita Broaddrick, and accused of sexual abuse by Kathleen Willey? But hey, all is forgiven.
Never mind.
And can you believe how long Bill Clinton spoke? Longer than Kamala Harris's acceptance speech.
And so, I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I have no idea how many more of these I'll be able to come to. I started in '76, and I've been to every one since. But no, 72. Lord, I'm getting old. But here's what I want you to know.
And Bill Clinton did the same thing at the convention back in 1988 when he was a rising star governor. And he went on and on and on. I mean, but on and on in 1988. He put everybody to sleep. There was a big applause line when he said, and in conclusion, people started applauding. And it led to Bill Clinton's appearance on the Johnny Carson show.
Well, Governor, I thank you for coming here tonight. And my first question is, how are you?
Finally, did you see Oprah's hair? That's a lot of hair. Apparently, Joy Reid did not get the memo. Now, did Clinton say Larry Elder?
Some days that's not easy to do. You've got to deal with all these emergencies, or there's something going on here, there, or yonder, but...
Sounds like he said Larry Elder.
Something going on here, there, or yonder.
And what was that fell from Nancy Pelosi as she was walking towards the podium? I think there are 4 possibilities. 1, it was one of Biden's classified documents. 2, it was Donald Trump's ear bandage. 3, it was Hunter Biden's Coke. And 4, it was one of Governor Walz's tampons.
Say that one more time.
Hope you enjoyed We've Got a Country to Save. Brought to you by my friends at investyrefy.com. Invest in America like I do. And by Freedom Chat. Freedom Chat has true end-to-end encryption, no storage of messages on the server, and no commercial use of user data. Speak freely and message privately. Download the app today and subscribe to my Freedom Chat channel at Larry Elder for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. We also thank Epoch Times, Old Glory Bank, Patriot Mobile, and Birch Gold. And make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you are currently using, whether X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. And be sure to patronize our sponsors. And remember, we've got a country to save.
Something going on here, there, or yonder.